Hi everyone, my name is Jenny Lightningmountain and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'll be going over some basic tips on how to get better at live RP showing in Star Stable Online. Now you may be asking, why you qualify to give out tips? That's a great question. I am one of the founding members of SSO RP live showing. I started live showing in the fall of 2018 and took over the first ever live showing server that winter. And I've been showing for almost 8 years and have owned many successful showing organizations like JNSA and NALSA. So with that being said, let's get into the tips and tricks to help you at your next live show. Starting with some overall general tips for showing, always make sure your horse is max happiness. You'll lose points if your horse isn't fully happy, but grinding for happy hoof treats in Valedale, which is free, is a great way to make sure that your horse is always max happy. Always check the dress code for the server that you're showing in. Some servers update them, and you just want to make sure that you have everything that those server requires because you might lose points if your attire is wrong. And then always just check the judging guidelines because every server is different. Some servers might penalize for something that another server might not. Moving on to the flat, first thing we'll go over is rail spacing. I feel like a lot of people struggle with rail spacing, so I try to make a good visual. Imagine another person directly next to you against the rail, so between your horse and the rail, and that should be the spacing that you have. Next we'll go over screen delay spacing. Just as a general rule of thumb, the faster you go, the more space you'll need between you and the person behind you to make sure you aren't clumping or cutting them off. The judge will see you further behind on their screen versus what you see on your own screen, so always make sure you're looking around with your camera for open spots on the quarter line or the rail, and also look behind you to make sure you aren't going to be cutting someone off or accidentally clumping with someone. At the walk, you want to have about 2 to 3 horse lengths between you and the person behind you. At the trot, it's about 3 to 4 horse lengths. At the canter, it's about 4 to 5 horse lengths. And at the working canter, it's about 5 to 6 horse lengths. Sometimes you may find yourself behind someone who's slower than you and you need to find a way around them. The most common solution is to move onto the quarter line. Just always make sure you check your screen delay spacing before you move so you don't accidentally cut someone off or clump with them. Another solution is to cut across the arena, but I only recommend this when it's a small class and you're already on the quarter line. A less common way to make space is to circle. Again, I only recommend this when it's a small class, so you have lots of room to spare. When circling, do not curl. I cannot emphasize that enough. Tap your key when you're circling, never just hold it down. I don't recommend doing a circle at the canter or working canter in small rings just because you run the risk of cutting someone off or clumping. When the announcer calls for the lineup at the end of the flat, make sure to start cutting in your track. A lot of times when judging, I see a lot of people hug the rail all the way around the ring until they make it to the lineup, which is something I and a lot of other judges don't want to see. Just make sure that when you're cutting in your track, you aren't cutting anyone off that's behind you. When walking into the lineup, make sure you aren't stopping too close to others, and once you stop, make sure you do not move. Some servers will see it as a disobedience and penalize you for moving after you halt. And if you have a red ribbon or see someone else who has a red ribbon, make sure to give them extra space or you might get penalized. Something else I see a lot of newer competitors do when the lineup is called is change directions to get to the line. Don't do this. The judge didn't call for a change of directions, so you will be penalized for doing so. Cut in your track and just loop all the way around to find your spot in the lineup. Your main goal for the over fences is to be perfectly straight and perfectly centered over the jumps. My trick for finding the path you need to take starts at the jump itself. I place my horse directly in the middle of the jump and I make sure I'm perpendicular to the poles. Then I back my horse up all the way to the fence without touching any of my turn keys, and this helps give me a visual on what the straight and centered approach is to the jump, and then I can practice where on the rail I'll need to turn relative to the approach line. Opening and closing circles are commonly seen at the start of hunter courses. I see a lot of people struggling to figure out where to pick up the transitions within the circle itself, so a general rule of thumb is to do it on the halfway mark of the circle. When doing your transitions, make sure you do not show any canter. Transitions should be directly from one gate to the next, whether that's trot to working canter or working canter to trot. Normally, I base my transition off where the in and out gate is. So for example, if my opening circle starts at the right gate, I'll walk in for about 10 steps, pick up my trot, then pick up my working canter on the halfway point of the circle, which would be at this vertical. So let's say my closing circle was at this left gate. I'd start turning for my circle, and then at about the halfway point, which would be around this turn, I would go down to a trot and then trot down the rest of my circle, then walk about 10 steps away from the gate. Turns are another really important part of your course. They should be smooth and direct and use up as much of the ring as possible. In hunter divisions, taking up more space allows you to set yourself up for a better approach to the jump. In Hunter Derby or Equitation divisions, the course designer may ask for inside turns. An inside turn just means that instead of taking up the entire ring for a turn, you cut to the inside of the jumps to go to your next jump. They shouldn't look like jumper turns, and they should still be smooth and have the same curve throughout the entire turn. A poorly executed inside turn where it isn't smooth or is too tight might be penalized. So those are my top 10 beginner tips for live showing. I will be making a top 10 advanced tips sometime in the future, so if you have specific things you want me to cover, make sure to let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more of my videos in the future, be sure to subscribe. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.